Ricky Nelson's life looked like the American dream from the outside. But behind the polished images of the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, he was a young man raised under a spotlight he never asked for, controlled by parents who shaped him more like a brand than a child, and haunted by a lifetime of pressures that followed him straight into the tragic plane crash that ended his life at just 45. Born Eric Hilliard Nelson on May 8, 1940, in Teaneck, New Jersey, he came into a home where show business wasn't a job. It was the family identity, carved out long before he took his first breath. His father, Ozzie Nelson, had built a career as a big band leader, and his mother, Harriet Hilliard, had worked stage and screen since her teens. When they launched their radio show in 1944, and later the television version in 1952, their sons weren't simply family members, they were cast members. Ricky didn't get bedtime stories or bike rides the way other kids did. He got vocal lessons, rehearsals, and an unspoken message that the Nelson name was bigger than any individual dream he might have had. He suffered from severe asthma as a child, often spending nights coughing until dawn. But instead of rest, he was pushed to continue recording lines or appearing on set. Ozzie controlled every detail. The scripts, the schedules, the smiles, even the money. By the time Ricky was 9, he was earning $200 per episode, the equivalent of around $4,500 today. Yet, he never saw it. Ozzie controlled all finances, and even as the show became a massive hit with nearly 20 million listeners, then viewers, Ricky was handed only a tiny allowance so small that at 16, with over $500,000 in his name, he had to dig through empty soda bottles to scrape together enough change to take a girl to a movie. While other teenagers were learning who they were, Ricky was learning how to play a character version of himself, smiling on cue while battling anxiety behind the scenes. He wanted normal moments, sports games, dances, freedom. But Ozzie insisted that the family brand came first. When he asked for a bicycle at 12, wanting nothing more than to feel the wind on his face, his parents refused because they didn't want the public seeing him doing anything that looked too ordinary. He was a quiet kid who rarely raised his voice, forced to balance the expectations of an entire viewing audience with the loneliness of never truly belonging anywhere. By the mid-1950s, Ricky's face was pinned on bedroom walls across America, and his family's show had become a cultural institution, running 14 seasons and 435 episodes, covering his life from age 8 into his 22nd. But his real passion arrived unexpectedly the night he watched Elvis Presley perform on The Ed Sullivan Show. For the first time, Ricky felt a spark that didn't come from his parents' ambitions. He wanted to sing not because it was required, but because it was his. In 1957, he recorded I'm Walkin' and A Teenager's Romance, debuting them on his family's show before they hit the shelves. Within days, the songs skyrocketed, proving Ricky was more than just Ozzie's carefully groomed son. He had real, generational talent. Bebop Baby followed, selling 750,000 copies before it even hit stores. In 1958, Ricky became the very first artist to land a no. One hit on Billboard's brand new Hot 100 with Poor Little Fool, which went on to sell over 2 million records and cement his place as America's first teenage heartthrob. Crowds at his concerts grew so wild that police had to physically drag him off stage, and in one New York performance, over 10,000 screaming fans surged so hard that officers had to form human barricades. Yet fame only deepened the divide between the star the world adored and the young man still living under his parents' control. Through the late 50 seconds and early 60 seconds, Ricky scored hit after hit, Lonesome Town. It's late Travelin' Man, Hello Mary Lou, while making a respected leap into acting, especially in 1959's Rio Bravo, where his performance alongside John Wayne and Dean Martin earned him a Golden Globe nomination. But Hollywood's narrow vision kept him boxed into teenage roles, and the arrival of the Beatles made his clean-cut image feel outdated overnight. Determined to evolve, Ricky formed the Stone Canyon Band in the late 60 seconds, becoming a pioneer of the California country rock sound that would eventually influence the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt. But reinvention came with backlash. In 1971, when he walked onto the Madison Square Garden stage with long hair and a new sound, the crowd booed him for not being the boy from the 50 seconds. The pain of that night inspired him to write Garden Party, which became a top 10 hit in 1972 with its famous line, "You can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself." His personal life, meanwhile, was unraveling. He married Kristen Harmon in 1963, and though they had 4 children, Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam, the relationship collapsed under the weight of substance issues, financial battles, and constant touring. Their divorce in 1982 drained more than $1 million in legal fees and left him with $4,000 in monthly support payments. A paternity scandal in 1981 confirmed he had fathered a son, Eric Jude, though the boy was later excluded from Ricky's will. His final years found stability only in Helen Blair, a devoted partner who traveled everywhere with him, though his mother Harriet refused to accept her. On December 31st, 1985, Ricky, Helen, and 5 band members boarded a plane in Texas, despite a heater known to malfunction. Mid-flight, the heater caught fire, and the cabin filled with smoke. The pilots survived, but Ricky and the others died when the aircraft went down in a field near DeKalb, Texas. After his death, Harriet refused to let Helen be buried near him, and her name wasn't mentioned at the funeral. Years later, hidden royalty accounts revealed more than $12.7 million in unpaid earnings buried in old contracts, money Ricky never knew he had while he spent his adult life struggling to stay afloat. In the end, America saw a charming star with a guitar, but behind the applause stood a man who spent his entire life trying to breathe in a world that never once gave him room to grow.